I think that's recording there. Hello, happy Wednesday. Good evening. I have just finished delivering a full almost 8 hours of Zoom calls, client support, sales support, all of the forms of Parmees support. My eyes are watering. My brain is not as sharp as it was earlier today, but I was on fire today with some of the conversations that I was having with my clients. I felt like the thoughts were flowing, the ideas were just coming through very clearly, and I felt like it would be a shame if I allow myself to let this flow go to waste without capturing it in some way for the public. So here I am doing exactly that. This is the disclaimer is this is a completely impromptu session, meaning I have not prepared notes, I have not prepared what I want to say. But what prompted me to want to get on here and do this is that I ran a Q&A over this weekend, just in my stories, just a little question box you can add in to your stories on Instagram. And the questions that were asked prompted many incredible conversations in my DMs with clients, with non-clients, with people who I did not know were following me. And so there were some incredible questions that stirred a lot of thought within me about topics that I want to share more publicly, topics that I want to bring more attention to, topics that I think are important to share my perspective on that perhaps I'm not necessarily seeing happening in our space or being discussed in our space. And so what I've done is I've downloaded all of the questions, and there was many that were asking relatively the same things or were within the same realm of topics, and I've gathered them all together. And my intention for tonight is actually to further elaborate on some of the responses that I had previously publicly shared on my stories. And again, this is the purpose of this is twofold. One is I feel like I myself have been hiding some of this potential when it comes to sharing my wisdom. As ironic as that is, because I'm such a huge advocate for getting your ideas out there, being the person who becomes known for their way of thinking and building your personal brand, building this powerful presence. And I'm calling myself out here a little bit because recently I've been a little spicy with my clients. If you've been in my containers, you've probably felt it. Not because I'm just being bitchy for the sake of being bitchy, but I feel like there's been a couple of moments of tough love that I've had to provide my people. And being the integrous person that I am, I'm also going to call myself out on a couple of things here. Number one, or kind of the gist of what I'm calling myself out on here, is this, I don't know if I want to call it a belief or if I want to call it this pattern, this complacency in riding the wave of becoming known and sharing my wisdom through writing for the past 10 years online and becoming a prolific producer of my writing and building a substantial audience, a very profitable and in-demand business and offer suite that consistently bring in ready to pay clients. And I feel like I have really capitalized on my ability to articulate and communicate through writing. But there has been a part of me that has also stayed hidden, in a sense. Not hidden because I'm afraid of being on camera, not hidden because I have things that I'm afraid are going to get backlash, or what are people going to say? What are people going to think? But upon deeper reflection, I've realized that there's been a number of experiences and things that have happened in my past that have almost implanted this idea against me getting on video and sharing my message, sharing my wisdom in this way. And I'll be touching on them a little bit as I'm answering these questions because that was actually one of the questions that was submitted is, you're a phenomenal speaker. I've seen you speak, I've seen you deliver presentations. Why are you not doing more of this? And I have really had to sit with this question a lot because as you guys can see, I'm not camera shy. And if you've been a client or someone who's attended my events, my workshops, or any sort of this type of thing in the past, you know that I'm very interactive. I'm very engaging in the way that I speak, in my teachings, in my presentations. And so there's really been no reason to keep myself hidden, to hide behind the writing component of that part of my identity. But upon sitting with it further after this weekend and after that question that was submitted, I've come across a couple of beliefs and things that I'm going to share with you guys today. Not immediately, I'm going to get into them, but I wanted to call myself out and hold myself accountable to that because I want to make more of an effort to show up in this capacity. And truth be told, I don't give two shits if anyone watches this, if nobody watches this. I'm more so doing this for me to document some of these pieces of wisdom and insight that have been coming through and almost to keep it as like a diary. Not a personal diary, but a diary of my wisdom, of my body of work. And so I'm not going to say I'm committing myself to it because life is going to get a little bit up and down over these next couple of months. But what I would like to do, and if you're watching this, maybe you would like to try this out as well. We can be accountability buddies. I would like to produce one video, long form, unscripted, of myself a week, going through the various revelations, the various questions that I had to help my clients through, the various experiences that I have knowledge or insight to share on a weekly basis, maybe on a Friday after I've spent the whole week supporting my clients and in creating things, to just capture some of these thoughts and get myself in the practice of creating content in this way. And again, I would like to build this in public. I would like to put it out there because I'm sure one or two things that I share are going to bring value to someone out there. And whether one person watches it or 1,000, I don't care. I would like to just simply commit myself to this practice and hopefully break the pattern of relying on my writing to be the sole form of communication that I portray of myself. Okay, now that that's out of the way. Like I said, the intention of this video, whatever this is, this recording, is to go deeper into some of the questions that were asked and to further elaborate on some of the things that I had shared that had really sparked some good discussions in my DMs. The questions that were submitted ranged from anywhere from entrepreneurship, time management, task management, relationships, health and beauty. Like I feel like people really laid it down and got into some juicy stuff. So I've handpicked, I haven't got, not, I'm not going to go through every single question that was submitted, but I've handpicked the ones that I feel I would like to elaborate on further. And there's some that I've maybe kept for future videos that I think require or merit their own video in itself. But there's been clusters of questions, like I said, that were submitted that all revolved around the same topics. And I want to go deeper into these topics because I think they were important things for you guys as personal brands, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, as people who are thinking about perhaps, innovating a product, innovating a solution, someone who's maybe stepping away from the status quo, someone who doesn't perhaps want to be, in a 9 to 5 forever, and they want to understand the strategy, the energetics, the thought processes behind um, building a body of work, behind building a sustainable business, behind the inner and outer operational systems of a person who's been in business for a decade now. So, without further ado, I think that's enough of an introduction. Um, I have saved the questions on my phone and I'm going to be going through them kind of like one by one and giving my elaborate answers on. These are in no particular order, and I'm going to do my best to not go on a multitude of side tangents with each topic, as I'm sure each one of these topics could probably be a whole lesson of its own. But we're going to see. We're going to see how well we do with that. Okay. So, question number one was, well, not question number one, but like cluster of questions. Number one were around the origins of my work, of how I got involved in what I do, and how that work has evolved over time. What have been experiences that have shaped my perspectives, methods, philosophies, and what is it that I really love about what I do now? That was obviously multiple questions that I've now baked into one. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to give you my entire life and business story. But for those of you who don't know, I'm a personal branding strategist for expertise-based personal brands who want to create a movement-based business and a solid presence online that naturally evokes action and naturally attracts people to their brand. I do this by helping people develop their own unique ideologies, proprietary processes, intellectual property, their own unique concepts, and branded material so that they really feel solid in their brand identity, who they are, what makes them different, what it is about their work that makes it so needed in the world, and to help them understand how to package their expertise, their genius, their experiences, their story, their personality into a solid brand identity that can be presented to the world. With that, I also, with my copywriting background and my ghostwriting background, as like I said, many of you guys know me for being a prolific writer. I also help these brands understand the science and art of communication, positioning, and how to articulate the value of what they do so that they are consistently communicating in a way that is clear, in a way that is cohesive, and in a way that's impactful. I've always said that the number one skill that you can develop in business, aside from everything else that we're going to probably touch on today, is the ability to skillfully articulate yourself and skillfully be able to influence a room, metaphorically speaking, with the message that you have to share. So it's teaching people how to get that messaging component, how to get that communication component really on lockdown. And then third, how to actually build a presence that organically brings people into your world. Especially today in the marketing field, we're in such a broad scope of marketing. Like marketing nowadays can mean anything. It could mean ads, it could be building out systems, it could be like there's many forms of marketing out there. The branch that I've kind of claimed as my own is how to build a presence that is magnetic. How do we get people that watch your stuff, come into your world, discover who you are, binge your material, fall in love with what you have to say and the value that you have to share, and naturally feel like this is my person. This is the person I want to work with. This is the person I trust. This is the person that feels like they get the depth of my soul. So, how do we build a presence that does that? So, in a nutshell, that is what I do with my clients. And there's various different offers and forms that happens in. Now, the thing that I wanted to share is obviously I could record maybe a 90-minute session on all of the lessons and pivots and things that have shaped my perceptions and my ideologies, my philosophies, what has got me to doing this work, because this was not the plan, and the final product of what I'm offering my clients now was definitely not what I was doing with clients in the beginning. So I could maybe save that whole journey and evolution story for another time. But one of the most important things that I have noticed in business, in marketing, in building a successful brand, in becoming known for something, in being able to command a room, to show authority in your domain, to be trusted, and to be that person that stands out because they have that certain element of je ne sais quoi. I've realized that the majority of my career and the majority of how marketing is being sold to you is very heavily strategy dominant. We're being told that if we have the right hooks, if we have the right headlines, if we have the right exact carousel posts and viral reel format, and if we have the sales page that perfectly encapsulates our offer, and if we have the perfect launch script and blueprint and the VSL and all these strategic terms that I'm throwing at you, if we have all of these things in place, that our business is going to take off, that people are going to like us, they are going to trust us, they're going to want to pay us. And from my experience, after 10 years of working in various capacities with brands, I have come to learn that the strategy is perhaps only 10% of what leads to a successful brand getting themselves out there, creating sustainable income, and actually uh, becoming a brand of substance. 90% of what I attribute most people's success to is their conviction in themselves. It's the ability to be clear on who you are, what is your expertise, to be able to have ownership over what makes you different, what makes you valuable. It's the ability to not allow yourself to be swayed by trends or swayed by external forces. It's the ability to stand firm with your boundaries. Essentially, what I'm saying here is that 90% of what leads to your success in business is not the external projection or portrayal of your value. It's actually the internal alignment of yourself, the internal belief system, the conviction, the clarity, the self-direction, the self-trust. Those things matter more than the strategy. So why am I bringing this up as people are asking me about, my journey and my business and where am I at now, is that a lot of times people will come to me for the messaging, marketing, offer creation, IP creation, demand creation, all of that, which are all very strategic things. And I have a ton of experience that will be wildly valuable to these people. But if you've been in my containers, you know this. A lot of the work that I do with my people is not working on the business, it's working on the human behind the business. The loops of overthinking, the comparisonitis to everybody else in their field, the second guessing of their value, of their worth, of whether people are going to buy into their offer or not, the inner wounds and the childhood wounds that emerge when we think about sharing our message that might ruffle some feathers, the parts of ourselves that we have been told or conditioned to hide because we are afraid of what people are going to think if we actually revealed them to the public. These are the problems. These are the real problems, I should say, that I'm solving inside my containers. It's not so much what to say, the content, the marketing, which I have a prolific amount of frameworks and concepts and branded material that really help you understand how to distribute content, what to talk about, what makes a message magnetic versus what doesn't, how to be more clear, how to be more articulate, how to be more vivid. I have the strategy on lockdown, but oftentimes in the implementation of the strategy, people realize that just knowing what to do is half the battle. The other part of it is conquering yourself in the process of implementing the things that you know to do. So that's all I wanted to elaborate more so about that because there were several questions about my journey and about what I teach and what kind of themes I touch on inside my programs. I hope I did a good job of encapsulating at least some of it in a nutshell. But if you are a business, a brand, if you are a creator, someone who is looking to get themselves out there more this year, someone who is, sitting on a wealth of wisdom, sitting on potential that has been untapped, sitting on perspectives, ideas, solutions, things that you know are so needed in the world or so needed in your field, and no one is quite talking about it like you are. Nobody is really shedding a light on things with the depth and the nuance that you have. I urge you to put it out there. I urge you to start creating. I urge you to stop downloading every single freebie and workshop and masterclass and content blueprint and viral hook strategy and whatever else you are seeing out there, thinking that you're missing it before you can get started. And I promise you, the moment you just simply recognize that what you have to share is valuable, is needed, and is in demand, and once we're able to get out of these loops of overthinking our message, overthinking our audience, overthinking our offer, and we just simply create and allow that creation and the exposure of that creation to naturally iterate and refine and get better over time, that's when we have cracked the code. It's not because we followed someone's 17-step funnel launch strategy that boom, all of a sudden we make it. You can follow the strategies, and you guys will hear me say this in my programs a lot, that yes, you can have the self-belief and the authenticity, but people need to understand the potency of your message. People need to understand the transformation. Yes, those things are important. I'm not going to discount it, but 90% of the game is just getting through the shit that's happening here and in here that are stopping you from actually becoming known for your craft, actually putting the work out there in a meaningful way. All right, I probably spent way too much time on that first question. Let's keep going. There's a lot more. All right, let me adjust this so that I don't flash you guys. That's not the vibe I'm trying to give off here. Not the right platform for it either. Okay, so people ask me if I still experience self-doubt, if I still question myself, if I still worry about what others think, if I overthink my content. Um, and there was a lot of these questions like, do you still experience or do you have this issue still in your business? Do you still struggle with? And I want to shed a light on why I believe these types of questions are asked. And I don't mean this in a malicious way at all. I just want to shed a light again on some of the perspectives that I believe are important to be talked about. In essence, the simple answer I have to this is no. I do not experience self-doubt. I do not experience overthinking. I do not experience comparing myself to others. I do not experience what else was there? Questioning myself, if I still worry about what others think, overthinking my content. No. I do not. And it's not because I think I'm God's gift to earth and that I'm perfect and that there's nothing wrong with me. That is absolutely not the case. It is because I have mastered my craft. It is because I have spent years putting in the reps, working on things, doing the hard shit, feeling scared and doing it anyway, nearly vomiting, but getting on stage to deliver a talk, taking on clients that I wasn't sure if I was fully equipped to support them in, and crushing it anyway. In other words, I have spent years sharpening the axe and helping people get the results that I now promise. So when I write a piece of content, when I release a new offer, when I come up with a new idea and I put it out there in the world, there is no ounce of me that is doubting, second guessing, comparing, being afraid of how it's going to be received. Why? Because I have put in the work to develop that confidence. Confidence is a muscle. It goes hand in hand with the competence that you feel in your field, which is why, and again, this was another one of the questions that was asked, which is why when people think about becoming a more confident version of themselves, when people think about how do I appear more like an authority, how can I harvest that confidence, that conviction, it is not by waiting to feel ready for that confidence to emerge. It is by doing hard things. It is by putting yourself out there in a way that is subtly uncomfortable. It is by solving problems. It is by immersing yourself in your craft. It is by learning harder things. It is by asking people to challenge you. It is through those challenges and building up the evidence in yourself that you are able to overcome those challenges that confidence starts to develop. So when I say I don't experience self-doubt, it is because I have gone through excruciatingly difficult situations personally and professionally, and I have made it through. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had a lot of failures. I have fallen on my face multiple times with offer launches and collaborations, and I've done a lot of things that are quote unquote wrong. But were they really wrong? If they taught me what I know now, if they helped me develop this resilience and this confidence in who I am and how I share my work and what I become known for, I don't think so. So, do I still experience these things? I don't, because I've done the work. I've done the work behind the scenes. Now, the other side of this that might come off a little bit bitchy, but I'm gonna say it, is that a lot of us like to look to the people that we respect and admire and the people that we deem successful. And we like to think to ourselves that they also still struggle with some of the things that we might struggle with. And if they still struggle with it, then we feel validated in our struggle with it. So if I admire Parmees's writing, but she still second guesses and she still doubts her ability as a writer, then I'm gonna feel nice and warm and cushy inside because I still doubt myself as a writer. And if this so-called successful person still feels that, then I'm okay still feeling that. In other words, we like to feel validated in our victimhood. We like to feel validated in the smallness of what we're playing. We like to feel like it's okay if we haven't figured this out. It's okay if we still are caught in these negative loops. And let me just start off by saying that it is absolutely okay for a certain period of time. When you are starting out, when you are putting in the reps, when you are in the messy iterative process of trying to figure out what's your thing, what do you want to be known for, that when the mistakes happen, when the client chargebacks come through, when that collaboration that had so much potential falls through, you will have moments of doubt. You will have moments of, I don't know if I should have done that, or I totally could have approached this differently. That is completely normal. But what we don't want to normalize is it's okay if I'm constantly second guessing myself. It's okay if I don't actually feel that embodied and convicted in my expertise. Because, truth be told, after some point, it's not okay. What that is usually stemming from is a deep rooted insecurity or belief or narrative of not enoughness, of not having a fully formed and strong, solid sense of self and self concept. It is when we allow some of the conditionings and the beliefs that even unconsciously have formed throughout the years to dictate the direction of where we are going. And as I shared with the first question, a lot of people are not lacking or not taking action because they're missing strategy or because they don't know what to do, but quite the opposite. They know exactly what to do. They just can't get through the thoughts and the beliefs and the inner critic and all of the things that stir up within us when we think about putting our work out there. Those are the things that are stopping them. It is because their identity has not calibrated to the version of themselves that they see, the version of themselves that they want to become. So it's so, so, so important to be able to discern in the different phases of our business, of our life, what is actually where are these beliefs, where are these narratives coming from? And am I looking to simply be validated and to simply feel good in some of that victimhood of I still experience doubt and I still haven't figured it out? Or are we looking for a solution through it? Because, truth be told, like I shared, if you are putting in the reps, if you are creating value, if you are going out there and doing difficult things, if you are someone who doesn't allow the uncertainty of entrepreneurship, the up and downness of entrepreneurship, the overwhelm of entrepreneurship get to you, then you are forging that resilience to do bigger and bigger things and put yourself out there. And with more of that exposure, the self-doubt, the second guessing, the comparing yourself to others, the worry of how you are going to be perceived, that slowly starts to melt away. But not because you did affirmations or tapping or you just all of a sudden magically woke up one day and you're this confident version of yourself, but it's because you've put in the reps. It's because you've started to untangle yourself from that narrative that you've been probably carrying around with you for a very long time around the not enoughness, the not good enoughness, the other people have it figured out and I don't. And it's okay to be caught in these loops of overthinking. And that's normal. Everyone experiences overthinking. They don't. Not everyone does. And I'm not talking about narcissism, but we're talking about people who have actually put in the freaking reps, people who've actually done the work. Does this mean that I don't have off days? No. Does this mean that I'm never sad? No. Does this mean that there aren't times that I commit to something and it scares the shit out of me? No. There's moments of discomfort, but that discomfort is no longer coming from a fear of how I'm going to be perceived or am I good enough? Is this good enough? Are people gonna like it? I don't care. I don't care. Even me putting out this video, I'm probably going to go on some tangents. I'm probably not going to be as clear and articulate as I was this morning. I don't look my best right now. Some of you might think I do. I don't think I do. There's some doubts. There's some. Is someone going to watch this video and say you're ugly? Sure, and you're dumb, or I don't like the way you talk, or I hate your voice? Probably, but I don't care. I don't care because my voice, my message, my presence to me has developed and has been forged in fire. And I like myself. I trust myself. I have conviction in the work that I present to the world, and that's what matters. Okay, moving on. Overwhelm. Oh gosh, I tore my clients a new one with this concept today. The question was, how do you deal with overwhelm when there's so many things to do and so many things to think about as a business owner on a day-to-day basis? And I feel like this is like question of the century, especially for those of you who might be more neurodivergent, ADHD leaning. By the way, hard to tell because I mask it really well and I've come up with systems and strategies and ways to work around it. No one would know. Anyone working with me would never know that I am severely ADHD, but I am. And so I've had to not overly identify with that diagnosis and simply find workarounds it. So, two things that I want to say about overwhelm is that number one, and this is what I shared with my clients this morning, we need to accept overwhelm as just a natural part of running a business, a natural part of being committed to someone, or sorry, committed to being someone of excellence. In any notable thing that we want to achieve in life, it is going to stretch us. It is going to require more of us than we think we're prepared to give. That in itself is overwhelming. It is overwhelming to think about competing in the Olympics. It is overwhelming to think about becoming a pop star. It is overwhelming to think about the amount of work that is going to be necessary or required of you to create a sustainable business that brings in six figures a month. There's a lot. There's a lot that needs to be implemented. There's a lot that needs to be thought about. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with these things. Anything that is worth accomplishing and that is notable and admirable by the outside world or even by ourselves is going to overwhelm us. And as I said to my clients this morning, respectfully, if you shy away from a challenge, if you are one that to quickly get dysregulated or quickly get overwhelmed and back away or paralyze or go into these really deep, dark loops of self-paralysis and self-questioning, then perhaps entrepreneurship is not the path for you. And perhaps it is, but you still need to spend some time building up that muscle and building the capacity to handle overwhelm. I'm 10 years in my business right now, almost 11. I'm still overwhelmed on a weekly basis. I'm overwhelmed every time I have a new idea for a product to launch. I'm overwhelmed every time I have six different people who want to hire me one-on-one at the same time. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of tasks that need to be consistently thought about and decisions that need to be made and things that require my attention on a day-to-day basis. I'm overwhelmed when I'm sitting down to think about a lesson or a workshop or something that I'm creating for my clients, and I have so many ideas coming through my head that I feel like I need to put all of these things in this workshop. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of content ideas and downloads, like creative downloads that come through my consciousness on a regular basis. I'm overwhelmed all the time. And guess what? I suck it up. I suck it up, and I realize that overwhelm is just simply a symptom or simply a signal, I should say, that I have committed to a big life. What a privilege it is that I have a couple dozen clients on a weekly basis that I am supporting in various capacities. What a privilege that they have trusted me with that. What a privilege that I have this gift of being able to create value. What a privilege that I have a business that is providing this lifestyle for me. And I'm not trying to bypass and be like, oh, just, be in gratitude and be in this high vibe. It is overwhelming. It is difficult. It is hard. But what is really beautiful about this overwhelm is that you build resilience, you build capacity the more you embrace overwhelm being part of the journey. Because like I said, anything that is worth accomplishing is going to stretch. It is going to feel uncomfortable. I've committed myself to a fitness journey in this past year. I've lost a ton of weight. I'm working on building muscle. I'm doing a lot of things for my health. These things that I'm doing, even lifting weight, I've committed myself to a routine of progressive overload, meaning it's hard. Those last couple of reps, I'm almost hitting failure. But those are the things that are building muscle. If I was going into the gym with these little dinky 15-pound things and just doing, 12 reps of 3 sets, and I'm like, that was great. All right, moving on to the next with no pressure, with no squinting at my eyes by the end of it, that's not going to grow muscle. So you really want to ask yourself, are you committing yourself to a life, a higher calling, a life that is going to demand more from you, a life that it requires you to show up in a much more in a much stronger, more resilient, more focused version of you? If that is the case, then you just simply have to accept overwhelm as a part of it. And this is when it comes back down to knowing your values, knowing your systems, knowing what's priority and what's not, knowing how to manage your energy. Not just your time, but manage your energy, understand your capacity, how much you are able to accomplish, how much you are able to take on. Um, Being firm with your boundaries, being firm with who gets access to you, being mindful of where are the energy leaks, where are you perhaps doing things to stay busy when in reality they're just draining your energy and they're not productive, meaning they're not moving the needle forward towards any goals. Just being mindful of these things are so, so helpful in reducing that overwhelm and realizing that overwhelm is just almost a story that we are telling ourselves that we are overwhelmed. And again, this is not to dismiss the experience of being overwhelmed. I know what it feels like. I know the spiral. I know the pressure on the chest. I know the I don't even know where to start. I have a million things open. But at some point, as a business owner, as an individual who is smart, who is creative, you need to come up with the systems. You need to get a grasp on your mind, on your energetic state, build that resilience through expanding your capacity to be able to handle the shitstorms, the ups and downs, because it doesn't get easier. You get stronger. You might see seven-figure entrepreneurs talking about how they barely lift a finger and everything is done. Guess what? Those people have teams of 7 to 15 people running things for them. They probably had to live a couple of really, really hard years of rolling up their sleeves and doing the work before they were able to attain that. So, overwhelm is a natural part of this process. And I would argue if you were ever significantly overwhelmed without the ability to reel it back in, then more often than not, that doesn't tell me that you are overwhelmed because of the number of tasks. That is likely telling me that you are overcommitted to things that are not in alignment with where you are headed. The times in my life, even recently, that I've experienced a overload or an overwhelm that was almost I was almost incapable of trying to reckon with in my head. It was because if I was being brutally honest with myself, I had committed to things that were outside of my priorities. I had committed and said yes to things that I probably should have said no to. I had leaks and energy drains happening left, right, and center, and it took a while to actually catch those things. So was I actually overwhelmed because of the number of tasks I needed to execute on? No. I was overwhelmed because I was out of alignment with what I wanted to create, with who I am, with my boundaries, with the people that had access to me. So the overwhelm wasn't coming from an abundance of things to do. It was coming from me not being clear, solid, and direct with what's important now and what's not important now. This is one of the most critical things that you can develop as an entrepreneur is the ability to discern between what is a priority in this moment versus what is something that is perhaps important at some stage of your life or of your business, but it does not require you to put it out like a fire right this instance. Okay, that's all I had to say about that. Just a couple thoughts here and there. Next question. Ooh, this one stirred up a little bit of controversy, not in a bad way, but in a Parmees way that just is a little bit polarizing. Um, it was about my practices or rituals to regulate my nervous system and what kinds of health, wellness, morning routine type of stuff that do I have incorporated that allows me to operate the way that I do. And I jokingly said that this is going to piss people off. It kind of did a little bit, but I also had some people being like, "Thank you, somebody finally said it." The short answer is I don't have any practices. I don't have any practices to regulate my nervous system. I don't do breath work. I don't do tapping. Recently, I don't even journal. I don't have a morning routine. I don't have an evening routine. I don't actually have much of a routine, to be honest. Um, I don't I don't have any like somatic things that I do. I don't even know like what they would be, but I don't do anything. I don't do anything. And this is why this is controversial because we've been told if we want to succeed as entrepreneurs, if we want to be regulated, especially as women, if we want to be mentally, emotionally primed to take on the day. Like, we need to have these morning rituals, these evening rituals. We need to have these practices. And this is the part that I kind of said but didn't say in my response on Instagram, is that I've recently noticed that the people who over obsess about these things, like having the perfected ritual, having the practices, are oftentimes the most dysregulated and the most sensitive people, fragile people that I have come across, meaning they will spend years perfecting their somatic practices and saying, I can't take action until my nervous system has been regulated. And they'll use a lot of therapy talk, right? Oh, my capacity, my wounds. I just need to get this on lockdown. It is an elite form of procrastination. That's what it is. And I'm just going to say it the way it is because I know it's going to piss some people off. It is an elite form of avoidance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you nervous system people, the breathwork people, because here's the thing. I'm not disvalidating, I don't know if that's a word, invalidating, it's not disvalidating. I'm not invalidating these practices. I'm also not invalidating their usefulness and the utility, the power that they hold in particular circumstances. But truth be told, in many circumstances with entrepreneurs who have a 4 hour get ready in the morning routine of journaling and incense and lay upside down and then do 15 minutes of tapping and then take a cold shower and then like if you have to do 4 hours of things just to mentally prepare yourself for the day, I would be asking the question, well, what are you doing in your day that requires you to do all of that to just mentally prepare? I sometimes wake up, roll out of bed, have a content idea, get on my phone and type it out. I will wake up and I have this brilliant idea for this client's marketing campaign, and I'm like, I need to voice note this right now. There are times that I'll wake up and I'm like, I feel like I really overexerted myself yesterday, whether it's on calls, whether it's on client stuff, where I just had a lot of heavy output. And I think I need to take the first 4 or 5 hours of today to not look at screens, maybe go for a walk, maybe go get a massage, like do something that just brings me back into my body. That's what I do. But on a regular basis, I do the hard things. I have been working with a therapist for the same therapist actually for 10 years. I feel fear and I do it anyway. I do a lot of the things that I elaborated on before. I commit myself to consistently introspecting, consistently bringing myself back to what's important now. Where is my energy going? What focus or purpose am I putting at the focal point of my priorities right now? What are things that I feel need to be said? I'm constantly in a state of expression. I'm very firm with my boundaries. I take excellent care of my body. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't, well, when I say I don't smoke, you guys are gonna be like, hold on a second. I'll smoke a cigar here and there, but that's not like cigarette in my body. Like it's a once in a blue moon treat that I give myself. Um, I don't drink alcohol. I don't engage in gossip and stupidity. I don't take in junk TV. I don't watch horror movies and things that automatically put my nervous system in a state of dysregulation. I don't watch the news. I don't engage in many popular things like what's going on in the news and political debates and yada yada yada. I can keep going about the things I don't do and I do, but at the end of the day, because I'm taking care, such good care of my mental physical state, I don't feel like I need these things. When I'm so in flow with my expertise, when I am so connected to a project I'm bringing into the world, when I am in such a deep place of gratitude and service with a client in helping them and serving them and providing them with answers and solving their problems, that regulates my nervous system. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel connected to myself. That makes me feel rooted in my body. I'm not just intellectually performing for the outside world. I feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose, a mission. And I think a lot of these people who hyper fixate and obsess with these somatic tools and breath work and cold plunges and all of that have a deep rooted disconnection from themselves, from their body, from their soul's purpose, from what makes them unique, from their genius, all of the above, mind, body, soul. Um, Faith, if that's your thing, God, like there's like a deep sense of disconnection I feel from the root and the source of your being. And I don't want to get too philosophical about it. I think I'm going to end that there. But basically, to answer the question, I don't have these practices. I go on very regular nature walks. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that I call myself a forest nymph. I'm always in a forest somewhere or in nature somewhere. When I was living in San Juan, Mexico, San Diego, I was always walking on beaches. I like nature, barefoot on the grass, in the trees. There's a lot of things that I do. I spend a lot of time in the sun, directly in the sun without SPF. Um, there's a lot of things I do. I nourish my body with very high quality nutrient dense foods. I'm always moving, I'm lifting, I'm challenging myself. And if I look back at the times that I wasn't feeling super great or when I was feeling uprooted and I was feeling dysregulated and I was feeling lost or needy or tense or angry, it's because I was not doing these things. I was not taking care of my body to that degree. I was not being mindful of my energetic leaks. I was not holding my own. My boundaries were not good. So I didn't need practices. I didn't need a red light panel that I sit in front of and tap every day. I needed to get back to the basics. Okay? Okay. I can say a lot more about that because I was very heavily involved in the biohacking space for quite some time. And I'm not going to get into it now, but there's a lot of toxicity in that space, just period. Okay. Next. Um, oh, this is a juicy one. So someone asked me my definition of a high value man as someone they further elaborated in the DMs after they submitted that question saying I value you and your insight and what you've created and I deem you as a high value woman, which was very nice to say. Thank you. I received that. But what is your definition of a high value man? What would you look for once you decide to put yourself back out there? And I think I gave a pretty decent response, but I think I can elaborate on this a little bit more as well because this has recently been relationships, relationship dynamics, polarity, men, women. These are things that I've experienced very closely, and have a lot to say about it. I don't think I'm going to elaborate too far in this video, but there's probably going to be subsequent videos that I'm going to make that create a little bit more of a connection and to draw parallels between my realizations about dating, love life, and how you show up in intimacy and business and all of that. But anyway, the high value man thing. What I had said in my stories is that I strongly disagree with the common narrative of what being a high value man is being portrayed on in what we see on social media or in podcasts and how high value is being portrayed to me is very shallow nowadays, both for the man and for the woman side. And I'll elaborate. I feel that when women talk about high value men nowadays, and if I prompt them to go a little bit deeper into it, they describe a man who is ambitious, successful, financially well off, has a desire to provide for them, is good looking, is fit, is socially perceived as alpha, well spoken, someone who wants to take care of his woman, someone with a lot of masculine qualities. And I think that that's okay as a definition, but I think it's only scratching the surface of what true value as a partner is. Because while, yes, it's nice to have someone who's ambitious and successful and good looking and fit and takes care of himself and wants to provide, great. That doesn't tell me anything about his character. And I said this in my story is that I've worked with very affluent, wealthy, charming men that were absolutely horrendous behind the scenes when it came to relationships, when it came to taking responsibility, being held accountable, comparing themselves to others. They were very fragile. And as a matter of fact, this masculine front that they had put on for the world was very much just that. It was a front. It was not what was actually happening within. And I see this with women as well, but I'm going to focus on men for now just because this was the question. A high value man to me is a man who has met himself, a man who does not run and shy away from his wounds, from his experiences, a man who could look at himself and point out his own flaws, who has sat with that discomfort and not numbed it with girls, porn, addictions, substances, success, money, attention. A man who has truly seen himself, and a man who has not just seen those parts of himself, but integrated them. A man who does the right thing even when it goes against status quo. A man who is deeply, deeply embodied in his values, meaning he doesn't just talk about his values and morals and claim moral superiority, but a man who is actually embodied in them. A man who is deeply, deeply devoted to himself, to his partner, to his mission. Someone that you can depend on. Someone who can hold a safe space, a safe container for a woman and remove his ego from that situation and truly have the capacity to build a unified, strong, compatible union with that person. Meaning have the hard conversations, be able to look at a woman's wounds and his own, and recognize the dynamic that is playing out between them without getting defensive and invalidating or running from himself. Someone who has a mission and a purpose beyond just acquiring wealth and achieving status. Someone who feels like they have more to give to the world. Someone who in tough times doesn't run away. Someone who I can keep going. I mean, I can probably write an entire manifesto on this, and I could probably get even more granular with like specifics of how I would think a high value man would respond in certain situations. But in essence, all I'm trying to say here is to me, a man's character, conviction, presence, rootedness, emotional maturity, his intellect, his ability to introspect, these are the things that to me make him high value, not how much he earns and what's his position and the empire he's built and the business that he's forging and the, amount of followers he has and how much he's willing to financially provide. That's going to be a touchy one. I'm going to create another video about that. It's not that I don't think that high value men can provide or should provide, but I'm not only looking at what is the lifestyle you can provide me. I'm not saying I don't need a man. I definitely do need a man. Not right now. I don't need a man. I want a man. Not right now, but at some point. Um, but I don't need you to provide a lifestyle for me to go, oh, yes, this is it. I could provide my own lifestyle. You guys see me traveling, you guys see me doing my own thing. I'm not impressed by money alone. Yes, I think someone who is financially secure, financially responsible, and financially thinking about his future, very responsible, very attractive. But I'm not going to look at a man's bank account and go, ooh, okay, I like this. It's probably the last thing I'm going to look at. Again, because I have confidence in my own ability to create my own wealth as well. Now, if a man comes into my life with the character, with the traits, with the values that I admire, and he wants to provide a life for me and provide in that way, because providing is not just financial, it's also emotional, psychological, physical, spiritual, all of those things. But if he wants to provide in that way financially, I'm not going to say, I'm making my own money, like screw you. No, I will receive. That is perfectly fine. But that is the last thing I'm looking at is whether a man can provide me with a lifestyle. Because girl, I've been making bank since I was like 24. Okay. So I can provide that lifestyle for myself. That's not important to me on the list of things. Okay. Like I said, I have so much more to say about this, guys. There's so many experiences, there's so many points in my own journey with my relationships. I've only been in two relationships, by the way. My engagement ending last year, the reflections I had from that, the wounds I had to reflect on from myself about that. There's so much I can get into, but for the time being, I'm just gonna close up that question. Um, okay. Solitude. This was another really interesting, frequent question that I was getting from women mostly. And there was a couple of ways that this question was asked. One was, do you feel lonely because you are always by yourself or you travel by yourself, you do things by yourself? Like, do you feel loneliness in that? That was one question. Second question regarding solitude was, excuse me, how do you develop the courage to just pick up and go, like live in a new country, travel by yourself? Like, how do you develop the courage for that? And then there was one more question. I don't think I wrote it down, but again, it had to do with the importance of solitude in certain periods of your life. So I'm a loner. I'm alone a lot. And that's by choice. It's not because I'm like an outcast from society. Although growing up, I quite frequently felt like the outcast. I think that's just like normalized solitude for me. I'm naturally an introvert. I love being in my own head. I love going on my long walks and just thinking about things. I'm a really big thinker. I'm a bit of a hermit when it comes to that. I love these periods of time where I just get myself so deeply devoted into my craft and into my business, into my work, and I just I'm in it. Like the whole world shuts down and it's just literally me and my ideas. I love that. And I think I've developed this comfort with going to things, doing things by myself without the fear of how it's going to be perceived by the outside world, which I think for many women is so, so key for them to develop, but they're always so afraid of what people are going to think and how is this going to be perceived. And it looks awkward. Like there's such an externalized sense of like what are other people thinking about me, which I don't have at all. Um, that I think is necessary for us to develop. There's a quote like most of man's problems comes from their inability to sit in a room alone. I really do believe that. I think when we do not have a strong relationship with ourselves, when we are not, like I said again, connected to that sense of purpose, soul work, creation, art, like just have developed that sense of like, I got me. When we don't have that, we are very commonly going to outsource, sorry, that's something in my eye. We're going to very commonly outsource that power to an external force to come in and complete or fill that void for us. For many women, it is with other men, whether they're relations like serious relationships and you kind of cling on to that one guy, or if it's casual relationships, if it's sexual, that goes both ways for men as well. Whether it goes to, you know, friends, dependencies on different addictions, substances, like we are consistently trying to fill that void so that we don't have to sit with our own thoughts. We don't have to be in our own heads. And I think that this is quite literally like one of my competitive advantages and a superpower. Because once you befriend yourself, guys, you become a lethal creature. You become a lethal creature when the outside world and how you are perceived by others, it cannot penetrate, it cannot influence how you think about yourself, it cannot shake you. And it doesn't mean that like, oh, I don't care what other people think. We are social creatures. At the end of the day, I'd be bullshitting if I say I don't care what other people think. At some point, I will care about what other people think. But when it comes to solitude, my own experiences, being with myself, I don't care about that. I like to forge that sense of like, I'm good within me. And I have. So how do you do this? How do you develop the courage is to do it, is to put yourself in the uncomfortable position of getting dressed up and going for a nice dinner, getting a table for one. Meanwhile, everyone around you is either coupled up or with friends, and there you are sitting by yourself, and you are going to be okay. Sure, you can be on your phone if you want to be. You can look around, you can stare into the wall, you can look out the window, you can focus on your food. But that practice of that mindfulness of just simply being in that social setting by yourself without worrying about how you're being perceived, that is only going to be forced through fire and by doing it. It is a practice, just like any other muscle, to develop the comfort of sitting with your own thoughts, sitting with your wounds, and you'd be shocked at what comes up sometimes when you are sitting in solitude or when you are doing things alone or when you are outside of your comfort zone, maybe in another country or doing something that you wouldn't usually do, and there's nobody else there to fill that void or nothing else there, aka social media or weed or whatever, to avoid feeling the things that have been brewing for quite some time. So that's what I have to say about solitude. I also think it's a brilliant way for women to reconnect to themselves who have not ever developed that sense of reconnection to themselves or connection to themselves. And then in terms of how do you develop the, you know, the courage to just pick up and go, the first time I did this, I mean, I've lived in multiple places now, and the first time I was away from home for a long time was not planned for. It was when I went to San Diego for work and ended up staying there for 6 months. I'm not going to get into that story now, but it's one worth sharing. It was during COVID. I met who became my fiance, ex-fiance at the time. Incredible story. Didn't have a happy ending, but life goes on. Um, how did I have the courage? Well, at that time, I didn't really plan that I was going to move out of Canada and live in the States. But the second time was intentional, and it was when I spontaneously moved to Mexico. And I don't know how to explain it. I think I wouldn't even say how do you develop the courage, because truth be told, at that moment, I did not feel like I had to exert courage or I needed to toughen up and just do it because it was the scary thing. I was so hungry for a life change and for adventure and for exploring parts of myself that I had not yet explored, because I felt like the hometown where I'm at right now, actually, I felt the hometown and the comfort that I had gotten used to was capping my potential, where it literally felt like you were wearing a shoe that was like 3 sizes too small for you. And you're like, my foot can't fit in here anymore. Like, I need to get out. That's the feeling that I had. And so, did it take courage? No. I was away from friends, from family, again, just making peace with the solitude. I was making friends when I was there. I was going to restaurants alone. I was going to coffee shops alone. I would take my laptop with me into public places so that I can maybe start conversations with people. And as introverted as I naturally am, I also can have very extroverted qualities come out at the right time. And I made do. I learned a lot about myself at that time. I was only 25, 26 years old. I learned a lot. I, again, developed that sense of resilience of like, no matter what's thrown my way, even if I'm living in a foreign country where I don't speak the language, I can figure it out. Like everything is figure outable. Wasn't really sure if my environment was super safe, but I made do with it. So sometimes it's a matter of doing the thing that you were so terrified of and building the evidence that it's not actually that scary. And for some of you, like moving abroad to a whole other country might be like too big of a step. This could literally just be you taking yourself on a road trip to the city next to yours for a weekend by yourself. It could be going to like a spa by yourself. It could be going out to dinner by yourself. It could be just going to the movies by yourself, which I'm doing actually soon. Like it's doing things by yourself and forging that sense of I got me. I like me. I don't care what other people are looking at. I frequently still get dressed up, all dolled up, looks like I'm going on date night, and I go to a nice steakhouse by myself. Do people look at me and being like, did she get stood up? What is she doing here by herself? Maybe. But I'm not looking for that. I don't care. I'm there to enjoy my grass-fed medium rare steak, okay? All right. Next question. Gosh, this is like there's so many more questions. Shoot, this is already like an hour long. We're gonna power through. If I get through them, I get through them, and if I don't, maybe I'll do a second video this week. So, have you ever burnt out or wanted to burn it all down in regards to business? No, I have not. And I'll tell you why. Because I believe in building sustainably. I don't believe in one-hit wonders. I don't believe in fast cash. I don't believe I don't believe in shortcuts. I don't believe in taking things and making them as efficiently as possible and getting it out there. I do not operate from an energy of scarcity of I need to do it, I need to get money out there, I need to get myself out there to make money. I'm going to miss out on opportunities. If I'm slowing myself down, other people are going to come in and take up all the opportunities. I do not operate from that energy. I never do things in my business that are not me or morph myself into someone that I don't want to be to get sales. Um, at the core of it, I have never operated in a way that was not in alignment with who I am. And because of that, I have never burnt out. I have gotten very close to overworking myself, overcommitting myself, and not being mindful of my health, not being mindful of my boundaries. That has definitely happened. And did it feel like burnout? Yes, it did. But did I ever burn out and feel like I need to burn it all to the ground and step away from the business? And guys, I'm going on sabbatical because I can't handle this anymore. No, I have not. And that is only because I, again, know myself at a very deep level. I know what I value. I know what my priorities are. I know what are the things that I need to do and need to avoid. And I believe in the compound effect of building something sustainably. It has taken me, I mean, I've been in business for 10 years. It took me 5.5, almost 6 years to hit my first six figures in 1 year. And here people are on the internet being like, I quit my job and made six figures in 3 months. Good for them. I'm not saying they're lying, but you are likely not building on a strong foundation. And a lot of these people, I'm sure you guys have seen, go on a mysterious sabbatical, dramatically pivot their business. All of a sudden they're burnt out. All of a sudden they reemerge with the sob story of like, I had my life together, but behind the scenes I was falling apart. Like I've never had that. I've never done that. I've never had that simply just because I don't like I don't build fast. I don't build from scarcity. I don't build because of FOMO. I build slowly. I build tools and solutions that last. I have built the majority of my business through word of mouth, reputation, referrals. I get a consistent stream of leads organically from my social presence because people have been consuming my stuff for years, literal years, months, years, and then they finally decide they want to work with me. I am in no rush to shorten my sales cycles or to capitalize on the AI boom. I don't follow trends. I don't follow other people's advice. I follow this. This and this. That's what I follow. And that's why I've never burnt out. Okay. I got more to say about that too, but for the sake of time. Um, A bunch of people told me to audit their page and tell them what's working and what's not working. So I wrote a whole post and email and resource on this. If you guys are interested in that, send me a DM. I'm going to send it to you. I went really, really deep in the five biggest mistakes that I see people making on their socials that are probably costing them sales. That whole post could be honestly a paid masterclass. I'm not going to lie. But what I will say is at the end of the day, what was the big common denominator amongst all of the things that were stopping people from creating sales is that they were not signaling correctly. They were not talking about the actual thing that they do. People would land on their page and it would take them time. They would have to exert mental power to figure out how is this person relevant to me? What do they do that I should care about? What is it about their offer, their program? Like what's the transformation? There was a lot of fluff, a lot of lack of certainty, a lot of um, like trends, but not being able to like ground them in a particular idea, a lot of lack of brand identity, a lot of really vague expertise-based messaging. So all of the things that I talk about in that post of like the big five things all come down to you are not signaling who you are for, and what you do as quickly and as efficiently as possible to your buyer. If someone lands on your profile and they have no idea how to categorize you in their brain and what exactly they would even come to you for, that's issue number one. If you have a random post on, your weekend with your family, and then you got another one about your dog, and then you have a random carousel that is teaching them, 5 ways to do XYZ, and then you have a random polarizing post. If there's no brand cohesion, if people cannot categorize you in something, that doesn't mean niche you down or pigeonhole you down. That's a whole other lesson. But categorize you as, that's what this person is about. Oh, this is what I would come to this page to learn. If they can't do that, it is very difficult for them to want to follow you, respect your expertise, and eventually want to pay you. So I go way further into this in that post. Again, if you're interested in it, if you've gotten this far in this video, send me a quick DM and I'll send it to you. Okay, let me see what else I can answer here that I think would be valuable for you guys right now. How do you come up with your ideas? I can't teach this. Not because I can't teach this, but you literally cannot teach how ideas come to you, because I believe the creative process is very unique, very nuanced, and it requires you to have a clear channel, to have clarity on who you are, clarity on how you want to be positioned, for you to engage with life, to be an interesting person. If you are not an interesting person, if you are not someone who lives an interesting life, it is very difficult for you to just sit there behind your screen and say, what's an idea that I want to talk about? It doesn't work that way. You need to be lit up by your life. You need to be lit up by your work. You need to become a channel so that when you're out and about, or when you're talking to clients, or when you're having a conversation with a girlfriend, these ideas just merge out of the day-to-day conversations and experiences that you're having. I could quite literally go out and about in my day and I probably think about 4 or 5 different pieces of content. Why? Because I'm grounded in my expertise. I know what I stand for. I know what's important. I know what it is that I want my brand to represent. I also know what are the things that my ideal clients are struggling with, that I'm super, super good at solving for them. I also know how using story and experiences can really help shape someone's perspective of you. There's a lot of things that I can pull from because I have a very clear, convicted sense of my brand identity, about my message, and how is it that I translate or alchemize my day-to-day experiences in my personal life, in my professional life, into content and wisdom and insights for other people to learn from. Because it's not a matter of, like I said, sitting down and trying to conjure up, like, what would my ideal client need to hear? It's more so positioning yourself as a vessel for experiences to be felt and to be embodied, and for you to be able to bring those experiences into your work and extract the insight of why would someone need to know this? What is a problem that me sharing this is going to solve? What is a new mechanism or a solution that I can bring to the public eye by depicting it through this metaphor? Um, Creativity and content ideas or program ideas or brand positioning ideas, business ideas, these require you to be immersed in your skill set, to be clear on who you are. They require you to engage with life in a fun, interesting way. If I was just sitting behind the screen on my TV after a long day, or never leaving my house, or never having deep, thought-provoking conversations, if I was not traveling, if I was not reading, immersing myself in literature, in philosophy, in looking at debates. Like if I was not stimulating my mind, I would not be coming up with ideas. So in order for you to come up with those ideas, you need to be committed to living a creative, artistic life. You need to be fully expressed. You need to be fully immersed in life, in the thing that lights you up. That's where your best content comes from. So the reason why I say I can't teach this is because I can't teach you to be those things. There's no XYZ 1, 2, 3 step process to help you become a creative person. You need to live it. You need to feel it. Okay. Next, let's see what else I can talk about here. Oh, yes, this is a good one. A question about how are you so insanely disciplined, or is worded something along the lines of that. And again, my answer kind of shocked a lot of people in my stories when I said, I actually don't think of myself as a disciplined person at all. And I think perhaps I give off that vibe because of the way that I operate, the way that I speak, the way that people can see how organized I am and whatnot. But I don't see myself as a disciplined person. I see myself as a person who just does those things because it's part of her identity. I don't have to exert discipline to sit down and work on my business. I don't have to exert discipline to go to the gym. I don't have to will myself into doing some of these things. I calibrate my identity with becoming a person who does those things. Just like how my identity for the last 10 years has been being a writer. I don't have to force myself to sit down and write. I simply write on a regular basis because that's part of who I am. So I see discipline as almost like needing to do the things you don't necessarily want to do, but you feel like you have to do. I rather think of it as devotion. When you are devoted to an identity, when you are devoted to a craft, when you are devoted to something bigger than you, that devotion intrinsically pulls you towards wanting to do it. You don't need to be pushed extrinsically by thinking about the reward or how good it's going to be, how good it's going to feel once it's done, or think about the money you can make on the other side. Like, I'm not an extrinsically driven person. I don't show up in my business because it makes me money. As a matter of fact, there's been times that my business has made zero money and I'm still showing up with just as much vigor and just as much passion. I've oftentimes funnily said to a lot of my clients, if I had a millionaire husband, billionaire husband, whatever, that was just like, sweeter, you don't need to work at all. All right? You just relax, do whatever the heck you want to do. I got everything covered. I would still be doing this. I would still be running the programs that I do, even if it was for free, because it lights me up. I like to solve problems. I like to be immersed with something that is challenging. I like to be involved in this creative process because that's just who I am. I don't have to will myself into it. Are there days that it feels heavier than others? Yes. Are there tasks that I have to do in business that I really probably don't want to do? Yeah, sometimes. I've gotten smart with how I delegate some of it, but yeah, sometimes you can't just avoid the thing. You have to do it. Are there times that I have to come up with a training or a workshop because I'm running it in a couple of days and I realize I haven't really worked on it and I have to sit my ass down and get it done? Yeah, I do. But I don't see those things as like being disciplined. I see it as this is just who I am. This is the life that I've committed to. And this is how a person who is committed to that sort of life shows up. Okay. So discipline versus devotion. Just like how when you are in love with someone, you don't need to exert willpower to not cheat on them. And if you do, you're probably with the wrong person. You are so deeply devoted to that individual that you don't even see other people, right? You would hope. Okay. Um, the nuance of AI. So, what are your thoughts on how AI can be leveraged in business? I've written a lot about this. I've talked a lot about it in my program. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I'm not someone who is anti-AI. I'm not someone who is like so dedicated to doing things the traditional way that like I'll get swept beneath the rug at some point. I think AI is powerful. I think it's incredible what it allows us to do with its capabilities. I think that it's absolutely a tool that can and should be leveraged to some capacity to make your life easier. But with that being said, I am not liking the over reliance on AI of a lot of people. I'm really not. I am not liking the way that people are giving up their sense of self-trust because they think that this machine can think better than them. I don't like the process that people are using AI to do the thinking and writing for them. As a writer, I think it is imperative, especially if you are a personal brand in the first couple of years of your business, to do all of the writing yourself because it's that act of putting pen to paper or typing, like getting your raw thoughts out from your mind onto something that really helps pick out where are the gaps in your understanding, where are the gaps in the things that you maybe are not so embodied in. The mere act of thinking about the abstract concepts that are in your mind and how you need to articulate them proficiently is building neural connections. It is getting you deeper embodied in your work. It is getting you connected to why you are doing this. It gets you clearer on your message. So I don't think in the first couple of years of business AI should be doing the writing for you. I think AI is a great co-pilot to help you execute on tasks that you feel are draining or are taking way too much energy or taking way too much capacity, where your genius is better used elsewhere. So when I come up with a presentation and I come up with all its material, I used to spend 4 hours putting together the presentation workbooks and formatting them and whatnot. Now AI can do that for me. It's still all my material. It's still my brain, but it makes it seem organized, legible, questions for clients. Everything is there in workshop style or workbook style. Um, so it frees up 4 hours where I can go now work on something else or take a break. That's how I think AI should be used. I don't think that AI should be used to be doing the thinking, the ideating. And I'm also seeing a lot of this. I made a post about it on Facebook the other day. I'm seeing a lot of people who come off really smart in their content, like not AI slop. Like I read their content and I'm like, this is bloody brilliant. And then I connect with them, or I join their program, or I get on a call, or they hire me as a strategist. And it almost sounds rude to say, but I'm like, damn, they're not as smart as I thought. They're not actually like really embodied in the work that they do. And I can tell through talking to them that a lot of their marketing has been forged through AI. So AI is actually smarter than they are. It's making promises and it's positioning things in such a way that seems like they really know their stuff. But then if I thought spar with them a little bit, that's not the case. That is concerning. That is concerning. Aside from the fact that just not using our brains is eventually gonna render our brains stupid. I believe that genuinely. But the fact that people are posturing as authorities that they have no business being authorities in, they do not have dominion over that field. They do not have the lived experiences to embody that. Um, I won't get into examples. I don't feel like calling anyone out, but there's a couple of people I've connected with recently that I was very disappointed to learn that the majority of their entire presence that I had admired and looked up to was conjured up by AI. And when I connect with them as an individual, it was underwhelming to say the least. So use your brain, guys. Please, please, for the sake of humanity's future, use your brain. Use AI to take care of the annoying tasks or code something for you that makes your life more efficient and better. But allow your ideas to gestate. Don't go running to AI to build something out for you or to rob you of the thinking processes. The most beautiful creative ideas are forged through time and marination and digesting the idea and waiting for it to clarify. There's an idea, I'm going to share this with you guys. There's an idea for a different branch of my business that I started ideating in July of 2023. It's almost been 3 years. It's been sitting on my notes. I revisit it every couple months. I add things to it. I go on walks. I think about it. And the idea still hasn't fully clarified, but it has taken shape. It has emerged through my day-to-day experiences. Like every month, I feel like I'm getting 1 degree clearer on what this idea is going to be when I decide to put it out there. Now, I could have taken this idea, ran it through AI, and it would have given me an entire plan of how to launch it and what to call it and what's the framework. And great, I did 3 years of work in 30 minutes. But is that actually coming from this artistic place of experience and embodiment? No. I'm just allowing AI to shorten and shortcut that process, but it's not built in my own experience. So I don't want to do that. Okay, that's it for the AI stuff. I'm sure I got more things that will come through a little bit later. Um, Okay, there's several questions here that are left, but I'm going to end it with this one for now. And maybe I'll do a part two. If you guys really enjoy this, I'll do a part two. Or screw it, even if you don't enjoy it, I'm gonna do a part two just for myself, just to answer the rest of the questions. So, how should looks and sensuality be tastefully used in marketing? Is pretty privilege a thing, or does it have the opposite effect? Now, the reason why I want to end with this question is because I started off this video saying that I have the sat with why I haven't been so overt on video for the last several years. And the answer that has emerged that has to do along the lines of what this other question is asking. So let me clarify. There was a time, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, that I was very prominently on video. I was, face to camera on my Instagram stories. On back then it was Snapchat. I don't have that anymore, but I had quite a bit of an audience, like business wise, even on there. I was doing a lot of webinars. I was out there, and I was perfectly comfortable, just like I am now. And then there were some comments that were coming through, comments such as, this is going to sound super vain, but I'm going to say it. You're so beautiful. I can hardly hear what's coming out of your mouth. Your eyes are so distracting. Sorry, what did you say? I wasn't paying attention. I was just picturing you naked. Okay, you guys get the point. Obviously, these comments were coming from lower IQ people, let's just put it that way. And at the time, I had a very deep insecurity around not being taken seriously because of my age, because of what I look like, because of how people would immediately put me into a box. And apparently, I don't look smart. I look like a bimbo, apparently. Or as a guy said a couple years ago, I look like a Bratz doll. And who would take life and business advice from a Bratz doll? What I didn't realize at the time is how much I had internalized those things. And I also vaguely remember someone who was not a mentor of mine at the time, but someone who was a lot more accomplished than me, listened to me talk about the insecurity that I had around not being taken seriously. And his advice to me at the time was, well, why don't you create faceless content? I know now faceless content's like really taking off. Back then it wasn't really taking off. But why don't you just make your business about your ideas and not be the face of it? And at the time, I don't know, like this was a long time ago. And we're talking like 2017. At the time, I'm like, yeah, that is the solution to this. Like that is the solution to being taken seriously because I am fucking smart. I know my shit. I know my ideas are different. I know that I have, impact to want to share. And if me putting myself out there is going to elicit these types of responses and is going to create some friction in how people perceive me, or they're going to be like, or whatever, they judge me, I'm going to do that. And this was almost like an unconscious decision to a certain degree of being like, I have brilliant ideas. I am an impeccable writer, and I'm going to hide behind that writing. And I forgot about this. Like, quite literally, I forgot about it until I'm sitting with this question of like, why are you not on video? And I'm like, why am I not on video? And I've been saying to my clients, like, yeah, I don't know. I feel this resistance around it. I feel this like, and it's not that I'm shy. It's not that I'm afraid of being seen or have vulnerabilities around like, I don't want people to think I'm this or that, but it's because I had internalized this narrative. And what was fascinating to me is that so much of my identity since then has shaped and shifted and grown and matured, and to the point where I don't give two shits about what people think about me anymore, whereas a more younger, immature Parmees did. But what I recognize is how much of that story I had unconsciously still taken on, is that if I show myself in this way, I am going to elicit a more negative response. I'm not going to be taken as seriously. People are not going to see me as the authority. Whether it's my voice, whether it's my face, whether it's my body, whether it's the way I speak, the way I portray myself, it's a distraction and it's going to dilute my brand. And the irony is that I teach people to be the most authentic, rawest version of themselves. And what's fascinating to me is that I am that when it comes to my ideas and my writings, and I have no fear in being judged. I have no fear in people coming for me because intellectually I know I can handle it. Yet when it came to fully owning all of me and allowing all of me to be seen, there was some resistance there. And that's part of the reason why I resisted creating videos because I didn't want that. So, where most people have a visibility wound of like insecurity of being seen, for me, it was an insecurity, but it was almost like the opposite. Anyhow, the reason why I'm saying this is because the question around pretty privilege and using sensuality tastefully in your marketing. Do I think that being attractive has advantages? 100%. That would be naive, and it would be naive of me to say no. I absolutely think it does. I think that it is alluring to the eye to have someone that is good looking to speak, to interact with. I think we automatically associate certain traits to that person when they're attractive. I think sex sells. So embracing sensuality and all of that, I think that sells. Here's where I think it's a slippery slope, though. The first point I'm going to make with this is that there is a tasteful way to use sensuality and your looks in marketing. And there's a more vulgar way of using it. And unfortunately, I've seen a little bit more of the vulgar way being shown recently out there. What I mean by vulgar is actually performative sensuality. Sensuality to me has nothing to do with your looks. It has everything to do with your energy, meaning you can be subpar attractive, but if you genuinely feel like you are the hottest woman on earth, that energy is felt. And it's not coming from like a, "Ah, I'm better than you" way. It is simply coming from this like, I'm fucking hot and I know it and I don't care what you think about it. That energy is magnetic, right? That energy is it's attractive when someone has that level of deep belief in themselves. Now, to me, sensuality is owning all of that. It's being a woman who pours into herself, takes care of herself, feels embodied, feels good in her own presence. She's not putting on a show. She's not looking for external validation. She's not looking for people to come and call her hot or call her pretty. It's a woman who is 110% in her sensuality, like in her body. You can see it in the way she moves and the way she carries herself and the way she speaks about herself. There's no part of her that is dimming herself for other people's comfort. There's no part of her that is filtering or posing or posturing to elicit a response. That is wildly attractive. That is the type of sensuality that I think needs to be embraced more. Even if it's through pretty photo shoots and videos that are a little bit more sensual in nature, when it is not performative, it is being done tastefully. When you are not using yourself as an object, that's another thing, to elicit attention, that is when you do things tastefully. Now, it can be vulgar when you are over accentuating sexual traits or attractive traits because that's the thing that's going to get people's attention. So I've seen a slew of ads recently on Instagram. I don't know why I'm getting hit with them, but probably because they're in my industry, of women doing these like very avant-garde video shoots and photo shoots for their business stuff. Like I'm talking like full-on burlesque, almost like stripper-esque photo shoots with lingerie and whatever. And I mean, someone can look at me right now and be like, well, Parmees, like you also are kind of wearing something a bit low cut. This is who I am, okay? I have a little bit of that mystery and allure and sensualness to me. But anyways, it just almost like over exasperating it, and it looks gross to me. It looks performative. It looks like someone who is using it to get attention. And I said this in my stories when I answered this question as well. I said it's one thing to capture attention, it's another to keep it there. A woman can be wildly attractive, very, very sensual, and yet you come into her presence, you come into her world, and you realize that there isn't much substance aside from her looks. So, what I said in my stories to answer this question is that looks can attract someone there, but you need deeper substance to keep them there. Just as how if you were dating and you go on a date with this incredibly handsome man or beautiful woman, that is the thing that maybe initially keeps you there, but then you speak to her or him and realize The intellect is really not there, values are not really there, not very well spoken, doesn't know themselves well, has some toxic behaviors and traits. At that point, if you're a healthy person, it doesn't matter how hot or attractive they are. You don't want anything to do with them, right? It's the same thing in business. So yes, you can use your sensuality and looks and visuals and aesthetics to get people in there, but what's there to keep them there after the looks and the sensuality and the aesthetics? What's there to provide value? How are you solving problems in a differentiated way? How are you resonating with them? What is it about your work? What is it about what you stand for that is magnetic? Those things matter. And so, does pretty privilege exist? Yeah, absolutely, I think it exists. But could it also have the opposite effect? Yes. A lot of times, and I've shared this, my brand was forged on me being a little bit of a mind fuck because people could not understand how someone who looked like me at the time or carried herself or dressed the way that I did had the brain power that I did. Because I don't know, I have tattoos. I'm a little bit more sensual. I dress a little bit more edgy, a little bit more avant-garde. I I don't know. I look like a Bratz doll, like to some, not to all. And for some reason, it was really hard for people's brains to compute that a woman that looks like that can also speak like that and carry herself like that. Like it was weird. And people would automatically just assume I'm just some dumb bimbo or that I'm an influencer or I'm an OnlyFans model or whatever, just based on what I look like. So could pretty privilege also not be so much of a privilege? Yeah, absolutely. It could also backfire in certain situations. But that's when you stop hiding the parts of you, just like how I'm doing right now. You stop hiding the parts of you that you are afraid are going to elicit some sort of particular response, and you fully freaking own it. And is it going to piss some people off? Yes. Have I been hated by other women just because of how I look? Yes. Have I been torn down by other men that don't know me, these incels on the internet? Yes. Like, oh, she thinks she's all that. But you know what I've learned? The more grounded and convicted you are, in yourself, I feel like this is the core message of this entire video. It's not going to shake you. It is not going to have an impact on how you see yourself. And I'm putting my hand up because I'm calling myself out here as well. I am done. I am done dimming myself because I'm afraid that other people who don't have all of this going for them are going to feel intimidated or who are going to dislike what they see. Okay. And I want you guys to lean into that same level of audacity and that same level of strength and conviction in owning and leveraging your competitive advantages. Own it. If you've been given a competitive advantage, if you have something that you know puts you at an advantage, own it. Don't hide it like I did for 7 years because it makes things harder. And I'm not saying that my business was harder, my marketing was harder. I still progressed. I was still successful, but there was still that like 1 degree of it wasn't even insecurity of, but like imbalance or unalignment, misalignment that I'm like, okay, but I still need to just become known for the way I think and how smart I am. I cannot be known for like all of this because they're going to be, they're not going to feel good about themselves. They're going to compare me to XYZ. No more. Lean into those freaking competitive advantages. Own it, own the sensuality, but it has to come from a grounded place. It can't come from a performative place. I'm not going to post super sensual photos and video shoots of myself just because I like the attention that I get online. I don't care about the attention I get online. I don't care about the attention I get in the streets. What I care about is the inner dialogue that I have and how my future man sees me. Those are the two people that I care about when it comes to stuff like that. But it's my expression in how I own the wholeness of me rather than just the parts that I think are appropriate to show. The less I dim, the more I own all of this, the more I encourage you guys to do the same, and the more I allow you guys to see me in my energy. This was totally off the cuff, totally unscripted, totally just me blabbing, like yapping straight for an hour and a half. That's the type of energy that you need to be in to succeed, to be seen for who you are, not just chosen because of how smart you are or how you portray yourself. Okay. I feel like these were like 9 different master classes in one, honestly. Um, if you're still here, I appreciate you. I hope this provided something. I don't know what, but something. I hope one line, one piece of advice or something that I gave sparked something in you. This has been fun. So, will I be doing these on a more regular basis? I think so. I think so. And whether it's just for myself to keep a journal of my thoughts and insights and wisdoms, or maybe just to get comfortable getting on video, I'm going to do so. And if it just happens to reach someone at the right time and they enjoy it, great. Anyways, guys, sending you lots of love. It's almost 9 p.m. here after a very busy day. Hope you guys get some good rest. And if you've made it this far and would like to have a chat about anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to shoot me a message. I always like to engage in deep, thought-provoking conversations with people, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. So, hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Until next time, bye.